We've recently learned that someone that we were going to feature on the show to talk about police encounters isn't going to be able to participate. Why? She's afraid of losing her job after the president of the company that she works for, that has over 100,000 employees, sent out an email to all of them suggesting that they take 15 minutes of silence in honor of George Floyd. Seriously? We're going to honor a career criminal that's been in and out of jail his entire life and that was passing counterfeit money and overdosing on fentanyl at the time of his death? Is this someone we want to have our children looking up to? I've got a better idea, you pandering jackass. How about we take 15 minutes of silence for Araceli Enriquez? Oh, you don't know who she is? She's the woman that George Floyd terrorized and held a gun to her stomach as George and his 5 thugs invaded her home and pistol whipped her. Better yet, how about Darian Jarrett? Oh, you don't know him? Take a look. It's a simple traffic stop. Warning, it's graphic. He's one of the over 100 police officers that have died in the line of duty so far this year. That's right, I said over 100 so far this year, and I bet you can't tell me not one of their names. Maybe it's time we started using a little common sense and stop putting criminals on a pedestal, and maybe they'll stop committing so much crime and defying the police. That's all I have to say right now. I'm going to take a moment to cool down before we start the show. I'll be right back. So what'd you think of that? Would you like it if your boss sent out an email saying that you need to give 15 minutes of silence to a criminal?
Not at all.
You know, it's unfortunate that George had to die. I mean, don't get me wrong, that's terrible. But not all the responsibility should fall on the police officer. After all, it was George that was ODing on drugs. It was George that was out there passing counterfeit money. If he weren't doing those two things, none of this would have happened.
Well, I think you also have to take into consideration that George was a criminal to begin with.
His entire life, yeah.
So if the police check on you before they interact with you and they know that you're a criminal, they know that you've threatened people with a weapon, they have to be on the defensive. They have to be willing to protect themselves.
Forewarned is forearmed.
But they didn't know when they got there, from what I understand, they didn't know who they were coming in to confront at that point. They didn't know who George was. It was just somebody that was in the car that the store said gave him a fake bill. So they didn't know who he was when they went up to the car.
Well, usually a cop is going to check the license plates and run it.
Well,
I don't know if they did in this particular case.
I don't know if they did.
But
you know, to throw 100% of the responsibility on the police officer, I think, is wrong. Plus, he never got a fair trial. He couldn't have had a fair trial. The city paid out millions of dollars in advance before the trial.
I think it was something like 27 million.
I think it was right. So you're automatically implying that the officer was guilty. They implied guilt. Plus, then you have Maxine Waters out there threatening that if the jury doesn't return a guilty verdict on all counts, there was going to be a lot of trouble. One of the alternate jurors, even they did an interview with her, and she said they were scared. You know, had they come back with anything other than all guilty, they're fearing for their life. So there's no way this guy got a fair trial.
No, I think he was wrong in how he handled the situation. However, I agree with you. He did not get a fair trial. One of the things that really troubles me with all these riots that we've had, I mean, if we go to Kenosha last year, Jacob Blake, he was a criminal. Every one of these guys, whether it was Michael Brown down in Ferguson, every one of them had a criminal background. Why are we honoring them? What are we saying to our children about these guys that we're worshiping? Matter of fact, recently up in Minneapolis, a woman called 911 because of a domestic abuse situation. She had been sliced or stabbed by her partner. And when she called 911, she was told that she would have to walk a block away because we cannot get into that area. the streets are blocked off yet because of this memorial for a criminal. This is just frustrating as can be.
And right now with like Floyd, we've got how many lives destroyed over this? Floyd's life is ended. Now we've got a police officer that's got a family that he's not going to be going home tonight because he's going to be locked up in prison. He was just out there doing his job.
That's right.
What other job is there that you can have where you're going to destroy your life?
Well, I think what people should do is maybe consider their job versus the job that the police have to go through. And this little coin here, it's a nice, shiny silver dollar. It's from 1921. I'm going to put that down there. We'll talk about that in a bit. But I want to ask the people out there, when you go to work, who spits at you? When you leave the house in the morning, are you worried as to whether or not you're going to come back? At work, does anyone try to punch you out, swear at you, scream at you? And if they did, how long would you keep that job? And two, why would you want to keep it? And how is that affecting you and your family?
What about shoot at you? You forgot that.
Oh.
They're more likely to get shot or stabbed.
That's right. And we've seen in the videos that were put on earlier that this can happen. Okay? I definitely agree that, especially nowadays, the police department does need some training and assistance in how to deal with these people. But I have another question. What is the police department doing to help the police like they help, let's say, veterans coming back? These guys are shot at. These guys are being abused when they come back. And we say post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay? This is what they have put up with. Cops put up with the same thing. What are we doing to help them? Are we doing anything to help relieve the stress that they are going into? Who, what, when, and where are helping them?
That's why the suicide rate for police is very high.
Let's get back to my coin, my nice shining coin. You notice this is one side, this is the other side. Coin has two sides, doesn't it? Well, so does this story. What is being done by the black community to train the black community? This is what you have to do when you come across a police officer, how you have to cooperate with him as best you can. This guy is afraid. You want to walk up to a car, there's tinted windows, you don't know if they have a gun. You've seen in the videos that were put on, what happens? You can be shot, okay? Why don't we see some of these leaders in the black community out there during these riots? Why doesn't someone like the Reverend Al or Political Al or Reggie,
Jesse Jackson.
Jesse Jackson, why don't they ride around in a cop car some night, hot August night on the south side of Chicago, and get out of the car and talk to some of these people? Dudes, this is what you got to do. You've got to cooperate. Don't blame it on somebody else. You have to get your act together. You have to stop killing one another. That's a good place to start. It is disgusting and it is revolting to me when I see these little kids sitting in their house and they get shot. A bullet goes through the window. The only thing more disgusting than that is the people who just don't do anything about it. It's your fault these children are being killed. You sit back and you don't do a goddamn thing. That's not right. That's not right. Where's Jesse Jackson? Where are the leaders of the black life community? They have to be told, get off your ass and do something. We're going to leave you some information here. Bob's going to do that, where you can contact these people. Ask him. Go into the Black Life Matters. What are you doing to train your fellow black American so that they quit killing each other and they have a much better neighborhood to live in? There's a lot more that can be said, but I think I'd like to end, at least from my part, is that there's a video I'm asking Bob to place. It's about 4 minutes. It's done by Chris Rock. He summarizes everything that we have said, or we're going to try and say, to the T. Chris Rock. It's called How Not to Get Your Ass Kicked by the Police. Robert,
Very,
comments.
very true video. You know, it's not just blacks. I can show you plenty of videos. It's got one I've just seen recently where the police pulled over a pickup truck.
Yes.
And there's an old white guy in it.
Yep.
And I forget what they pulled him over for, but they're having a discussion, and the cop's just kind of feeling him out. They're talking, and the cop notices, they get instinct after a while when there's something wrong.
If you're a good cop,
Yeah. And he questioned it, goes, you're kind of nervous. And the cop was just chit-chatting. You'd think it would just be meaningless conversation, but he was asking him just the right questions. And he said to him, he goes, let me have you step out of the car. Step back to my car a minute. And so the cop had started to turn away, and the guy started getting out of the car. Well, the guy stood up. He reached back, said, I can't do that, and pulled out a gun and went to shoot the cop. Just like that.
Did he shoot him?
They ended up shooting him. He missed because the cop saw the gun. He dodged, he went towards the front of the truck right away and got the heck out of there. And they ended up getting him. So it's not just black.
Oh,
it can be anybody.
I look at it from the standpoint that that's where the most amount of people, black people, are being killed.
Right.
Okay, and
And
that
there's
to
not
me,
there's
quit killing each other.
Right. They're not innocently sitting there like they portray. There's always some reason why it happens. Police just don't pull up to cars with people in it and start shooting them. There's, hey, we've got over, I think it's 55 million police interactions a year with the public. And there's like 300,000 in law enforcement. So the number of people where there are screw-ups, am I wrong with my numbers there? I know.
Actually, I heard it on the news this morning, and it was way higher than your number.
The interactions?
The interactions with police. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So when you look at where the police screw up, the percentage is actually small. I saw one the other day where there was a guy on drugs. He's all whacked out in the parking lot going around hitting cars with a crowbar. And the police got there, and they're trying to talk him to drop it. There was one cop, drop it. And the cop, I felt, overreacted because they were probably 8 feet apart. And after the cop kept telling him to drop it so many times, it's like he just got to the point, okay, I'm tired of telling you. And he put about 5 rounds into the guy. The guy did not lunge at him. He did nothing. So that was a great example of the cop being wrong. It was premature what he did.
I think he's wrong, but to what extent was he acting on fear? You can't tell me these guys aren't afraid.
The guy,
I'm
sure he was, but he didn't lunge at him. He didn't, pick it up to start to swing at him. The guy did nothing more. He was standing pretty much the same the whole time, and the cop just got tired of telling him. And
So what happened in that situation? Did you hear
killed
any
him.
more? No. What happened to the police officer?
I don't think anything happened to him. I haven't researched that, but I saw the video and I just cringed at that.
Where'd the video come from?
What do you mean, where'd it come from?
From the cop car?
Yeah,
Was
it was
it
a police
the body-
video. Yeah, it was a body
So,
cam.
so the officer knew he was
Being recorded, yeah.
being recorded. So did he have time to really think through this? I'm being recorded. Don't do anything stupid because you'll get in trouble. Or is he reacting on fear? When you react on fear, this part of the brain kind of shuts off, and it's just instinct. Not a good way to do things, but if the other part, if this is where I flipped the coin, if the other individual would have straightened out and said, okay, I'm going to cooperate, it would have gone a lot differently.
The intensity, in my perception of it, the intensity of the event did not change.
Drop it!
It did. There was nothing that changed that should have made him do that. The guy didn't lunge for him. The intensity stayed the same. So there was no reason for him. Why he did it, I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know what went through his mind.
Well, here, just to give you an example. In 2020, there was over 20,000 homicides in our country alone. How does this affect the state of mind of police? PTSD, how does that affect their state of mind? I saw one interview with a cop that was domestic dispute. I love when we talk about this domestic disputes or sending in social workers.
Social workers,
right?
yeah. Those are
Well,
some of
this-
the most dangerous situations to walk into.
This police officer went in on a domestic dispute, walked into the kitchen, and as soon as he walked into the kitchen, the guy turns his back to the cop, and the cop kept saying to him, "Put your hands up and turn around." Well, the guy finally turned around and just shot the cop. He shot the cop in the leg. The cop returned fire and shot this guy. Whether he was killed or not, I don't know. However, this cop eventually realized he had PTSD. He'd wake up in the middle of the night seeing the muzzle flash from this guy's gun. And he was shot in the leg. So he recovered fully, except mentally he did not recover. Mentally, he became more aggressive. He was irritated all the time. So that has to affect you when you're on the job.
You get shot at once or get shot once, you're going to be paranoid about it happening again.
That's my guess.
When you talk about, and I didn't see this video you're referring to, but when you're talking about a video, I mean, there has been numerous studies of how long it takes, if somebody is 21 feet away from you, how long it takes to get to you.
Right.
A second and a half. All right? This guy was 8 feet away with a crowbar. Now, I don't know how long the crowbar was. It could be a little one, could be a big one. But that's got to be running through the cop's mind. And I'm not trying to defend the cop in this case, but if that's running through his mind, I could see where all of a sudden he decides he has to defend himself.
Maybe he was just motivated and by saying, "I want to go home tonight and see my family. I want to go home tonight and see my family." Little far-fetched, I understand, but
Yeah, I felt it was premature, and that's what you get supposed to be getting trained for, and he blew it. I mean, just like the female officer that thought she grabbed her taser. Well, that's an awful mistake to make. That's a mistake they should never make. If you can't tell the difference in the weight and the feel of the taser.
I want to change the subject a minute. We've got everybody talking about defunding the police, dismantling the police altogether, or reimagining the police. Now,
are we moving to Camelot or what?
yes, as we know, cities, Minneapolis has done this. I believe it was $15 million they took out of the budget for the police last year, which took 84 officers away. And they have, I don't know how many people have resigned or retired early since this George Floyd situation. And they put a freeze on hiring. So their police department is getting smaller, smaller, and smaller. As a matter of fact, all major cities, the police departments are getting smaller. What do these people think? Who do they think is going to protect them when somebody is breaking into their house or they're involved in a serious car accident? Who is going to come to assist them?
There's going to be a serious wake-up call down the road, and it won't take long.
Oh, it's happening right now. Crime in all of our major cities is skyrocketing.
Right. Who would want to be a cop right now? I can't imagine somebody that would say they want to be a cop right now.
Oh, I think some of the thugs out there would say, "Hey, maybe they'll lower the standards and we can get in, make it so much easier."
Well, I think one of the things that's going to start to happen, if you look at Latin American countries who have underfunded their police departments considerably, if you want protection, you have to figure out how to protect yourself. You have to figure out how to get your own security.
Well, that's what the politicians did in Minnesota. They hired private. They pulled cops off the job, but then they hired personal security that the taxpayers paid for.
I've got a couple of individuals, you could say, that I rely on for my personal security. Their names are Sig and Sauer.
Yeah, good point. Last year, I believe the number was 25 million people went out and bought guns. 25 or 23 million people. And a good majority of them were women. And I want to say it was something like 8 million were first-time gun owners. Go out and buy ammunition right now. You can't find it. So what's going to happen is more and more people are going to figure they have to protect themselves. And all we're doing is we're putting more and more guns in the hands of civilians.
But if they're responsible civilians, that's not a problem. That's good.
Now, in many cases, they're going to be untrained, which is scary.
That's not good, but it's better than nothing to defend yourself in your home. Okay, as I saw in the video, if the people have their own means of protect themselves, the society is much better off. I saw a little video on the thing yesterday, and it commented, how willing would people have been to get on those freight trains to Auschwitz if they had weapons? Interesting thought.
Something we can talk about next week. What do we want to talk about for the next
Well,
show?
my birthday's coming up. I'd like you to talk about what you're going to get me for my birthday.
That show will get canceled.
One of the questions I have, and it goes, systemic racism. Is there really systemic racism in our country today?
We voted for a black president twice.
If you look at the city of Chicago, how many of our not only elected officials, but the support staff in Chicago are black, Hispanic, and we're racist. We're a racist country. I don't understand it.
Well, I think America has a problem because we're a very racial society. Go to England, France, Germany. How many different nationalities do you see there? Hispanics, and I don't think they have the population that we do. We're not racist.
Well, we're very diverse.
Very diverse, and we're getting better at it all the time.
We'll see you next time. Give us a like, follow. You know what to do. We'll see you next time. Thanks.
Ciao.